everyone, and welcome back to the Hero Arts YouTube channel. This is Mindy Egan. In today's video, I'm going to show you how I created a really fun shaker card using the June 2021 My Monthly Hero Kit. So here's a look at the kit this month. It is filled with these adorable critters. We have some puppies and some kittens here that are just ready to celebrate. So this is a 6x8 clear stamp. It also has 17 coordinating cuts. We have light mint dye ink cube, round clay sprinkles, and also a sparkle lacquer pen. And this is all included in the June 2021 My Monthly Hero Kit. So for today's card, I thought it would be really fun to create a shaker card with those round clay sprinkles. So I'll be doing some stamping, some coloring, and also show you how to create the shaker card. Starting with stamping out a few of my images, I am in love with this cute little puppy. I am definitely a dog lover at heart, so that is why I went for the puppies in this set. I'm stamping these images out on Dove White cardstock using the intensified black ink because that is Copic friendly, and I chose 3 elements. I have the dog bone there, but I actually don't end up using it because I had a better idea. Now, something else I wanted to show you is this double scrubber pad. Now, notice mine was empty, and the reason for it is I personally like to take the insert out, I spritz it with the cleaner, and then I rub it over my stamps on my MISTI tool. I honestly have really missed double scrubbers because I love the pad. I think they are great for getting in those fine lines of the stamped images. So I'm really glad that Hero Arts has come out with that double scrubber. I'm going to start by doing some Copic coloring here. I'm going to have all of the colors that I'm using listed at the top of the screen. For my puppy, I am using E37, 35, 33, and 31. And I'm just making sure that I have dark areas and light areas. I really don't know if these shadows are in the correct spot, and I'm really not worried about it. I just want to make sure that there is some distinction between a light and a dark area just to kind of bring this puppy to life a little bit more. Now, personally, my dog is black, but that's a little tricky to color. And I just thought the brown puppy or the brown looked a little bit cuter on this puppy. So I am just finishing coloring them in, and then I'm going to use R22 and R20 for the ears. Then I'm going to work on coloring the balloons, and I did leave in a little bit of the coloring on this. I didn't show every single balloon that I colored, but I did want to talk about why I colored them in certain areas. So all of the colors are listed at the top there for you. I wanted to have a rainbow of balloons. I think balloons are just a super fun image. They just really make a card very festive. And one thing I really wanted to keep in mind is, for example, the pink. So I have 3 pink balloons, and when I was thinking about placement, I wanted them kind of strategically placed throughout that bundle. I didn't want them right next to each other. Same goes for the orange. I was also kind of thinking ahead. Where would my colors be? What's going to come next? I didn't want to have 2 yellows right next to each other or 2 blues. So I just kind of looked at my placement and did it sporadically throughout the bundle, and it all worked out pretty good. I was pretty happy with it. I only ended up with 1 purple balloon, but that was just kind of poor planning. I didn't count that out very well. And this is another instance where I really wasn't worried about where my light source was coming from. Honestly, if an artist was to look at this, they would probably think I was crazy where all my light sources are coming from. But I'm not worried about that. I just wanted to have a dark area and a light area on my balloon. Once that is done, I'm going to line up the coordinating dies for these images, hold them in place with a low tack tape, and then run them through my die cut machine. Now I'm going to work on ink blending the back panel of my shaker card. So for the most part, this is going to take up pretty much the entire front of my card. And I wanted this to be as bright and colorful as my rainbow bunch of balloons. So I kind of took some colors that were in there. I had, that bright pink balloon. So I went with taffy reactive ink for the top there. And then I have creamsicle and lemon drop. And these are all the reactive inks that I'm blending onto Dove White cardstock with my Hero Arts blending brushes. You can see I'm going about a third of the way down, and this is just my first layer. This isn't the final result. I will typically go back and forth between my colors, maybe adding more color to really brighten them up and also kind of help the transition between each color. And I'm protecting my fingers with a Post-it just so I don't get fingerprints all over my background. So after this panel is all ink blended, I'm going to take the white iridescent shimmer spray and I'm putting some on my glass mat here, just spritzing a little bit down. Then I'll take a paintbrush and just kind of roll my paintbrush around in there, and I'm tapping my paintbrush to flick this background with that white iridescent shimmer spray. Now it's a little hard to see on camera. I'm going to pick up my cardstock here in a moment and turn it, and you'll be able to see that a little bit better. I think it's a nice subtle touch to add to that background. Then I'll set this off on the side to dry for a minute, and I'm going to work on my frame. Now I think the easiest way to do a shaker card is to have some sort of frame. So I am using the wood frame infinity die. You could also create your own frame with maybe the rectangle infinity, but I just thought this was way easier. This is all perfectly measured out. All the edges are the same. So I am just going to die cut this from Dove White cardstock. And I have a piece of acetate here cut to the same size. So this is 4¼ by 5½. I just want to make sure that that lines up, and I'm going to be adhering this acetate to the back of my wood frame die. Now you can use any adhesive. You can use a tape runner or double-sided tape. I am going to be using the Hero Arts Precision Glue, and this is in the 2-ounce bottle. This is something new that came out, and I really like it. It's a great fine tip, and it's very easy to squeeze. So I went around that entire frame. This is on the back side, and then I'm adhering my acetate to that, and I'll just sit with that for a minute, make sure that's attached really well. So because this is a wood frame die that I used to cut this frame out, there are little crevices in there, and I decided to die cut another one and add this right on top. Not only does that kind of help really hold this all together and kind of fill in those little holes that the wood frame created, but it also adds just a little bit of dimension to the front of the card. Next, I'm going to create the well for my shaker element. So I'm going to flip this over so that I'll be working on the back side of my shaker window. And I am taking foam tape and I'm folding it in half. So I stretched a really long piece out and I'm folding it in half. You want to have at least 2 layers of foam tape. And by folding it in half, it's just a lot easier. I don't have to layer it up individually. And then I'm just taking some nonstick scissors and cutting that right in half so that it fits around the width of my frame. Now I did end up having too much, but I'm going to save that for another card. I'm going to take one of those strips and remove the backing from it. And I'm going to start laying that down over the back side of my window. So this is on the back side where the acetate is glued down, and I'm just making sure to go all the way to the edge. You want to make sure that your foam tape is butted up right next to the other one. You don't want any little crannies. You don't want any little holes in there because you don't want your shaker elements to fall out. So once I line up this final piece, I'll just trim off that little bit there, make sure it's lined up right next to the other one, and then just kind of push down a little bit, make sure that that's adhered really well to the cardstock. Then I can start adding my shaker elements. So I am taking the round clay sprinkles. I can't say that for some reason. And I'm sprinkling them inside of that well. Now, when it comes to adding shaker bits, you don't want to go overboard on it because you don't want it to be too full where you can't see the background at all, or maybe it's bunched up and you won't be able to shake it. I decided that I wanted to add a little bit more sparkle to this, so this is optional. I have the Icicle Sequins Mix, which is just gorgeous, has some white and iridescent sequins in there, and I sprinkle a little bit of that in, and I just made sure to spread it out. I don't want that piled up in the middle. Then I'm starting to remove the backing. Now notice on the sides, I am only removing it part way, and I'm folding that backing piece over a little bit. So I'm not going to do it all the way right away. I'm going to do it kind of in sections. Then I can take my ink blended panel and I'm lining this over the back of my card. So on top of that double-sided tape. And then once that's there, I can pull the rest of that backing and also the bottom. and that's going to adhere the entire panel, and it came out pretty straight. If there was any excess hanging off on the edge, I can always trim that down. And there is our shaker card. I love this sequence mix and those round clay sprinkles in with those colors of the background. It's so fun and happy. I was really excited with how this turned out. Now I have a card base that is side folding that measures 4¼ by 5½, and I'm adhering my shaker panel to the front of that side folding card front. And then I'm going to quickly work on a sentiment before I forget that, because I always seem to forget to add a sentiment to my cards. So I have pitch black cardstock lined up in my MISTI, and I'm using a sentiment off of the June My Monthly Hero Kit. So I'm prepping this black cardstock with an anti-static powder tool, and I'm going to ink it up in the Hero Arts embossing ink. And I did just recently re-ink this, so I'm pressing down very carefully because I don't want to squish my letters. If I push down too hard, it'll distort those letters. You won't be able to read it. So I'm just being mindful of that. Then I'm sprinkling on the white embossing powder, tapping off any excess and melting this with my heat tool. And once this has cooled down, I'm going to take a Swiffer cloth and just buff over that to really make that black stand out and get rid of any excess powder that may be on the card. Now you can trim the sentiment out with a paper trimmer, but I prefer to use the rectangle infinity die. I just line one of those up over my sentiment, whichever one fit, hold it in place with the low tack tape and die cut that out. Now I'm just down to adhering all of my images onto the card front, starting with my sentiment. So I lined up the images about where I would want them to go, and I put a tape runner on the back of the sentiment. And now I have my balloons and my cute little puppy. So I have the tape runner on the back of the balloons, and I'm going to adhere the puppy. Now, one thing I forgot to do was you could take a fine black liner pen and draw on the puppy to make it look like there's a string continuing from the balloons around the puppy, like the puppy is being carried away with the balloons. I was going to add that dog bone, but looking at the front of the card, it looked like the puppy was getting ready to jump into that pile of sprinkles on the bottom. And I was so giddy and excited with that. So I left the dog bone off, and now I just have my puppy getting ready to jump into that pile. So I was really excited how this turned out. I think it's just super cheerful. This could be a birthday or even a graduation card. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and give shaker cards a try. This is a great kit to make shaker cards from. I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and I'll see you again soon.